The other day I was doing an online training session with a woodworker who was learning SketchUp, and we used a tool cabinet that he had designed as a basis for just learning some basic methods in SketchUp. And he suggested that maybe this would be a good video for the blog. So this is his cabinet when it's completed. And, well, it's not completed. We're partway through the design process. We still have a little bit to add to it, but I'm going to demonstrate how to draw this bit. So we'll start with a new drawing. Won't save any changes to that cabinet. And let's get busy. So I'm going to start with the bottom panel, and I know from his dimensions the width of this, or the length of the cabinet, and the depth, and he wants to be able to get the bottom and top out of a single sheet of plywood. So I've drawn a rectangle. We'll use push-pull and bring that up to thickness. I'll just type 0.75 and hit enter. And now, before moving along to do anything else, I'm going to make a component out of this. So several ways we can select all the geometry. This time I'll drag a selection box around the entire thing. And then G is the default keyboard shortcut for this to create a component. So I just hit the G key. I'm going to give this a name. I'm going to call it bottom panel and create. And now I know from the height that he wants the total height to be 49.5 inches between the bottom of the case and the top of it. I just put a guideline in here rather than doing the math for a move distance. Then I got the move tool, hit Control or Option on the Mac to invoke the copy function. I'm just going to bring this up. You'll notice, let me zoom in here real quick. You'll notice that I grabbed it at this top corner. I can bring that up to the guideline and it just kind of snaps there. You grab at the point or at a point on the thing you're moving that can correspond to some other point in the model. You'll find that it's a lot easier to move things. I don't have to enter any dimension at that point. Now before I do anything else, I'm going to flip this component along the blue direction. And the reason for that, go up here to the flip, is that I'm going to end up doing some things to this panel that get done to the bottom panel, but they'll be mirrored. So by flipping along the blue axis, when I flip one, or when I work on one, the other one will get the same treatment. Alright, let's put an end panel in here. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to zoom in here till I've got the rectangle tool. I'm going to zoom in here until I get this midpoint inference mark. Doesn't matter, we can do this on the front or the back. And then I'm going to come down and zoom in on the front corner of the bottom. And I've got that rectangle drawn to the full length. I don't need to know what the dimension is at this stage. I'll just make it fit. We'll push pull, and this time I'm going to triple click with the select tool, which selected the entire panel geometry. G, we'll call this an end panel. Now we need another one of these at the opposite end. What I'll do is grab at, so I've zoomed in, grabbing at this corner, and hit the Control key, again Option if you're using a Mac. Now I'm going to zoom down or pan down and a little zoom action here. And we'll come in here and we'll just drop this right at the midpoint at this end. And again, before I do anything else, I'm going to flip this, in this case along the component's red direction, or it's also the model's red direction. And while that's selected, let's put one in the middle. And the way I'm going to get this one in the middle is I'm going to grab the middle of this component, and I'm going to slide down here, zoom back so we get an idea where the middle is. Should be about in here somewhere. I want to see that red trailing line, and we can even hold the shift key to lock that. And then we'll just kind of feel along the bottom edge here, and we could do it along the top edge too of the bottom panel, and we get a midpoint or a constrained point, and we'll drop it. And now that panel is dead center in the box. For the moment, we're going to leave that alone, but we'll end up doing some things to those vertical panels in a bit. Let's go ahead, and while we're at this, we'll cut the joinery for the bottom and the top. So I've opened this for editing, and I've drawn a rectangle here, and I've just traced where the end panel overlaps the bottom panel. And now with push-pull, push down to the opposite end and just hit a corner or whatever there. So because I flipped the top copy, you see the rabbit is in the right place here. Had I not flipped that, it would have had the rabbit on the top, which is the sort of thing I might do in the shop, but it's not the desirable thing to do, obviously. While we're up here, let's go ahead and we'll cut the dado for the center panel. So again, a rectangle, just tracing that end, and I'll double click this time and with the push-pull tool, and that just cut the dado there. And we've got one last rabbit to cut. And if I had made a group of that bottom instead of making a component, then copied the group, I'd have to handle both of these, both the top and the bottom, separately in cutting all this joinery. So by leaving those as related components, we save ourselves a bunch of work. Actually, while we're here, let's go ahead and cut a rabbit for the back. So what I'm going to do is draw a line down the back, and so that's just the limit of the rabbit. And then with push-pull, I can push that in 3/4 of an inch. Now it's divided here by the dado, so I have to do it on the other side as well. But you can see that I now have that rabbit on the bottom as well. Alright, now the way this cabinet is designed, the back is just going to overlap the end panels completely. There won't be a rabbit. So by using push-pull, and I just double-clicked, I was able to get make all the panels the right width now. There's one last thing I'm going to do just to clean up the bottom and the top while I'm at it, and that is I'm going to delete some coplanar edges. And it's a good idea to look for those things and clean them up when they occur. In this case, it's because we had two sort of crossing push-pull operations that left those lines. But we don't need them, so we'll get rid of them. Alright, And while we're working on the back, let's go ahead and put the back panel in for the time being. So I've got the rectangle tool, and I just click on that corner there, and we'll move down to the bottom corner at the opposite end and click there to make the rectangle. This time all I have to do is bring this out till it's flush with the back edge. No dimensions entered, just put that in, and we'll call this the back panel. And we're good. Now let's put a face frame on this thing. So again, I'm going to start with the rectangle tool. I'm on the front of the cabinet now, and I'm going to use inferencing to place the first corner of the face frame rail. And what I've done is I've hovered over this point, and then I'm going to come over along the face, and there's a very faint trailing red dotted line, and when I get the little red dot, that tells me I'm on the edge. That shows me the starting point for my rectangle, and so I click there and start it, and I'll come down to the opposite end, and it shows the rectangle is 94 by 3/4. I'm going to make that 94. I'm just going to type comma 2, and that because he wants the bottom face frame rail to be 2 inches wide. And then I'm going to use push-pull, bring it out 3/4 of an inch, triple click to select all of the geometry, and even though I can't see it all in the image, I know by triple clicking that I've got it all. Hit the G key, and this is going to be the face frame bottom rail. Now, we could draw another rectangle for the top rail, but I'm going to just use the rail I've got drawn already, and I'm going to click at this top corner and invoke the copy function with control. Now I'm going to bring this up to the top. This one I don't need to flip because it's going to be a different component than the bottom one. I'm just using the original one here, or the first one that I drew, so I don't have to redraw that. So at this point I'm going to right click and choose Make Unique, which breaks its relationship to the bottom. And actually, let me bring in the entity info box. So we're going to correct the name on this now. It says when you use Make Unique, SketchUp appends number 1 or a number, depending on how many times you've done this Make Unique thing, to the component's definition name. I'm going to change that to top rail because later we're going to make a cut list, and it'd be nice to be able to identify that as the face frame top rail. And we'll get the select tool and open this for editing, and then I'm going to push that up by 1/2 inch because he wants the rest of the face frame members to be 1.5 inches wide. Alright, so now come back over on this corner, and I'm going to draw a rectangle for the section or the end of the face frame style. We'll type the dimensions. When you're dragging out the rectangle, drag it out distinctly longer in one direction than the other, and that will help you see which number you have to enter first. Bring that up here. Assuming that the face frame style or rails are in the right places, the length of the style just has to fit in between. We don't really care at this stage what that dimension is, so let's don't calculate that and type that dimension. Let's just let SketchUp figure it out by bringing that up. So here's a face frame style, and again I'm going to zoom in here so you can see this better. I don't tend to do as much of this zooming around when I'm working just for myself, and because I can see well enough to know what I'm doing. And sometimes I do things sort of by feel rather than by actually seeing it, because I know what's happened. That just comes with experience with the program. I'm going to bring this over and drop it. Right click, choose flip along, red. And although this doesn't look any different, and for that matter the side panel doesn't look any different at this stage, if we were to make some decisions, say we wanted to make those styles wider, by having that flipped, if we made it wider on one side, so for example, got that open for editing, if I wanted to make this face frame rail or style wider, you can see that because I flipped it, the increase in width is towards the center. It doesn't make the cabinet longer. If I hadn't flipped that, this would have gone out the other side and created more work for me. Now we need a center style. There is a linear array function that you can use for setting things out, but it doesn't, in this case, because the sort of the reference point on the component is different. It's the middle of the component rather than the corner. You can't use that and have the styles accurately placed. So we have to do this in two separate stages. So there's the center style complete. So that's that part of the frame. Now face frame, let's see if we can get our drawer dividers in next. So the first drawer is going to be a deeper one at 12 inches. And so I'm just going to, I've set a guideline using the tape measure tool up off of the bottom panel or the top edge of the face frame style. And now I'm just going to draw a rectangle here, and we'll make it the right dimensions, and bring that down to the center. And now if I triple click on that, I can make that a face frame drawer divider. You can abbreviate these things or do whatever you want with the names. You don't even have to give them names if you really don't want to, but it does make it a lot easier to identify what they are if you name them. So the next gap is 8 inches between the top of this divider and the bottom of the next one. We could figure out the distance to move, but I think it reduces the chances of error if you just measure that with the tape measure tool, the actual distance you want, and then move and snap. Alright, so I've moved that copy up. Now the next three are going to be really easy because I want a 5-inch, or he wants a 5-inch gap between these two, and actually there's going to be 3 of these drawers, so or dividers. So I'm going to copy that up, and I'm going to hit enter, asterisk 3, and that gives me 3 spaces that are all the same depth. In here is 5 inches, here is 5 inches, and of course the this one is 5 inches. So those are all made. Let's do the same thing now. Put these over onto the other side. So we'll grab them at the end with the Move tool. Make sure we hit the Control key to copy, and bring this down until it snaps to the other side of the center divider. And while I have those selected, I'm going to flip those as well along the red direction. In this case, it really doesn't make a lot of difference, but it could make a difference later on if we decide this cabinet needs to be modified. It'll save us a lot of work, and it's only a single step at this point, so that's pretty easy. So that's most of the cabinet done. We have a center divider between, in this space, he would like to split the bottom drawer into 2. So we'll go ahead and make that. What I'm going to do here is I'm going to use components that I've already made to do this rather than, or to get these parts rather than drawing new ones. So I've selected both the center divider and the center style. And I'm going to grab those at the midpoint with the copy function. I'm going to drag along here, hitting Shift to and holding it to lock the direction, and then I'm going to come up to the drawer divider because that one has a center point that's in the right place for me. And I'm going to drop those there. And I'm going to repeat that process. We'll just use these because they're selected. We're going to copy these down. Again, lock the direction with the Shift key. Feel along till we get that midpoint. Now these I'm going to flip along the red direction. And then I'm going to select all of those, since they're related, and I'm going to choose Make Unique. So these two styles are related to each other, as are the panels, but they're not related to any other components in the model anymore. We'll open one of these for editing. And I grabbed the wrong tool. Let's get push-pull. And this is one of those cases where I knew I was on the top of the, just by feel, kind of knew that I was on the top of the style rather than on the face. And so I can just bring this down. I don't care how far down I'm bringing it. It's just to the bottom edge of this divider. And see the one on the other side that has the same treatment. Let me hide the top panel for a moment so I can show you this a little more clearly. Again, I would just do this by feel. So I've opened that component for editing, and I just like to double click with select for that. You can right click and choose edit component if you want. Get the push-pull tool, double click, and that's shortened up that divider, and we'll leave it at that because the woodworker hasn't decided yet what he's going to do, if he's going to put a dust panel in there or how he's going to brace that up, so we'll just leave it alone. We'll edit, unhide last to bring our top back, and then we're going to put a cabinet top on this whole thing. And I have to go back and do a little editing of component names in a moment. And so this is going to be 1.5 inches thick, the 1-inch overhang all the way around. Triple click to select that all, and we'll call that top. Alright, so this is going to be lower divider panel. Just have to give it a name. And this panel is going to be going to make that unique, because I want that one to show up separately from these others in case we do anything else to those. And I'm going to call that center panel. All of the plywood pieces are getting the name panel, or the word panel, added to their definition name. This face frame style is sometimes it's difficult to decide what to call things, but we'll call this we'll call this short style. And I'm going to go ahead and make the leave the center face frame style related to the outer ones. At the moment, that's okay. If we were to change the sizes of these outer ones and wanted to leave that one alone, we'd need to use make unique. Alright, so we're finished with that, and now we're back to where we were at the beginning of the video. I'm going to save this file, and we'll call it cabinet 2 since I already have a cabinet. And at this point, I'm going to go ahead and select everything, and I'm going to choose from the plugins list, cut list, and in the before I make the cut list, I'm going to add the word panel to my sheet material words, and we'll even save the settings. And now I'll run the cut list, and the top, the first thing that happens here is we get some images showing the layout, because I had that ticked for the thing. The top is being made out of solid wood, and so it shows a number of boards, and I had previously apparently set the maximum width of the lumber at 6 inches. So it shows the parts for the top, and it shows parts for the face frame pieces, and then it shows there's the back panel, bottom panel, center panels, and so on. I don't usually use that part of it. Here is the cut list then. This is the part that interests me. So I've got the top and all the face frame pieces shown here, and a total number of board feet. And then all the sheet material parts are in a separate section, in the sheet goods section, because I had added the word panel to their names. And there's a quantity and the dimensions, and we even know, if we wanted, that this is almost 91 square feet of plywood. So that's a cut list. We could save that cut list as a CSV file and massage the numbers in Excel if you wanted, or some spreadsheet application to create a different format. You could also tick the box for Cut List Plus, and it'll generate a file that can be imported into Cut List Plus if you use that, and then it will do a sheet goods layout for that. So we'll close that. There's our model. We have drawers left to do. I see a couple of things I forgot to do. So let's go back, and I'm going to hide this. I never put the dado in the bottom panel, and this is the point where we would want to separate the bottom from the top. So Let's make the top unique, and we would rename that as top panel. I've moved the entity info box out where you can't see it, but I've just changed the name of that. Now let's go ahead and put in a dado here, and one here. Alright, so those have dados, and you'll notice that now the top doesn't have dados because it's a separate component. Edit, unhide last. Now we're ready for drawers and whatever other details are needed.